Brother Yoon, you must study hard inside, and strive to come out as soon as possible. The 30 square meter room is painted with white paint on the 4 walls, and the metal iron fence in the middle isolates freedom. After half a month, he personally sent himself in. Young Kai even wanted to make a super double. Outside the iron fence, the boy who belongs to the free party has a sturdy face, his expression is very sad and indignant. Inside the iron fence, the young man has perfect body proportions. He sits calmly on a stool with some curls in his hair. With a not particularly handsome appearance, he has a special temperament. Don't worry, I will definitely be able to leave in 3 months. Young Kai responded with a smile. I heard that the questions here are all abnormally difficult. Mathematical physics and chemistry must be more than 90 points, which normal people can't do. There was fear in the big eyes. The high wall at number 12, District 8, Kinchinch, specializes in detaining students who violate the Kinchinch regulations. If they fail to pass the 3 subjects to 90 points or more within the prescribed time, they will be transferred to a real prison to step on the sewing machine. The regulations that Young Kai violated is a violation of the rules and contact with extraordinary powers. This is a world where extraordinary powers exist. Some cities even have institutions for training extraordinary people, but Chin City is based on technology and completely prohibits ordinary people from practicing. According to the flow of legends, ordinary people's exposure to transcendence is a waste of resources. In the end, it is better for soldiers with hot weapons to easily take away a large piece of it. Young Kai was directly arrested by 2 trainees holding guns for buying related items on the black market. Thinking back to the experience in the past half a month, Young Kai is also somewhat helpless. There is quite a feeling that the first emperor has just started his own business, and Zhongdao was wiped out by Zioxi Mi. The big guy in front of me is named Chen Wu, because Chen Wu's sister likes the intersection of the 2 of them, but the 15-year-old girl loves simplicity and fell in love with a certain high-cold scholar last week. Did you bring me the things I want? Young Kai asked. Brought it. Chen Wu said, and took out 3 things from his backpack, a comb with a thick patina that was a bit disgusting, a round bead with bumps on an irregular surface, and a rusty metal blade. All 3 are antiquities, and the age cannot be seen. There are students in the 12th high wall, so it is relatively free and many things can be sent in. By the way, my sister asked me to bring you a sentence, saying that you don't want to think about unrealistic things. Just find a good girl in it and marry it. Wait for you to come out, she will invest in your business. Chen Wu continued to smile and said, but I think you must have your own ideas. If you need help, just mention it. I will also think of a solution during this time. Young Kai also smiled and said, thanks. He knows that the Chen family is very rich and runs the antiquities business, and Chen Wu's younger sister is also a rich little woman who has made a lot of money by writing short stories about campus love. The exploration time is over, he accepts 3 antiquities, turns around and returns to the high wall. There is no teacher in it, it's all self-study, and the final exam questions are still very difficult. The so-called going out is purely a vain opportunity. Learn? Learn a fart. Young Kai returned to his own small room. The thoughts turned, and a book appeared out of thin air, with Boss Manufacturing Manual written on the cover. Turning to the first page, there is only a slime-like liquid creature, but it does not have the cuteness of cuteness. The body is muddy grey and looks terrible. Boss image, completed. Yoon opened his eyes a little excited. This thing had already appeared when he was on the earth. The boss image on the first page was painted by him himself. Life at that time was extremely gloomy. This slime represented his mood at that time. But after lying on the hospital bed for a year, the manual did not get the energy factor at all, which made him think that he had hallucinations. At the last moment of his life, he crossed over to the boy who died suddenly. The only difference in appearance between the 2 was the original curly hair. Ordinary people in the JOO world can't practice less, which is very different from what he imagined. In order to create a boss, he collected various extraordinary items and was finally caught in the black market. After touching 3 antiquities with his hands, 5 small spots of light emerged from the inside. As the light spot left, some of the characteristics of the 3 items disappeared instantly, and the round beads appeared even with tiny cracks, which seemed to break when touched. Yunkai tried to suppress his excitement and made himself look calm. Many antiquities contain energy factors. These things are not forbidden to circulate in the market. If he does not go to the black market to meet the world and come into contact with something that should not be touched, he will not be caught. Made. Yun said silently in joy. Strength, normal level. Yunkai can feel that there is a kind of connection between himself and the grey slime. An idea went out, his perspective instantly switched, his limbs no longer exist, and the way he perceives the outside world has also changed. Can I still share the grey slime perspective? He was a little surprised. This kind of feeling is very strange, just like watching a game character, his senses in the real world have not disappeared, and he can still move normally. When he used to play games while lying on a hospital bed, he discovered that his brain can handle problems with multiple threads, and doing 2 things at the same time will not affect him as the king. He tried it, and found that it was not controlling the grey slime. The other party had self-awareness, but he could give orders at any time. Boss, die in the most exciting way. A belief of the slime was transmitted to the brain, and the cloud became clear. With the successful creation of the grey slime, the first page officially opened, and he felt that he possessed some extraordinary abilities. Now his brain can perceive all the surface buildings within a radius of 3 kilometers from his center, just like opening a 3D map. Put it out first, and let's talk about it after I figure it out. Anyway, I will definitely not be able to learn now. Yun Kaixin decided. The boss manual has been in his possession for 3 years and accompanied him in 2 worlds. Today he finally succeeded in creating the first boss. It is impossible for him to remain indifferent. Had it not been for 3 years of tempering his temperament by lying in a hospital bed, the 17-year-old would have been excited and yelling. Almost didn't think too much, he quickly chose a place. Kingku Lake is almost 1 kilometer away from the 12th high wall. The environment here is beautiful, not far from the city. Kingku flows from west to east, forming this large lake in the middle. But in Qin City, few people would dive into the water. This place has been very strange since ancient times, and it is said that extremely scary creatures will grow. There was an unnoticeable distortion on the water in the center of the sparkling lake. The grey slime got out of the distortion and then fell into the water. Cloud opens the perspective of the sharer slime and makes it act instinctively. He observed the shore, and there was no one he was looking for. Before he was caught, he had been to this place, because there was a fisherman named Yang Qianfeng on the shore, hiding his identity as a black market middleman. He went in shortly after the contact, and he suspected that Yang Qianfeng had deliberately engaged him. The line of sight changes with the slime's movements. The grey slime melts into the clear lake water, just like water melts into the water. There is no trace at all, and it is impossible to detect with the naked eye. The slime continued to dive, and soon reached the bottom of the lake. The water here was a bit muddy, but Yunkai felt that he was not affected. This is the first ability that belongs to the little boss. Yunkai decided to continue to observe, to see if he could find out what experience. Not long after, the slime wandering at the bottom of the lake suddenly stopped. A dagger was entangled in the place in front of the weeds and weeds. Perhaps because of the perennial exposure to water, the surface of the dagger has been rusty, but it still feels extraordinary. In order to obtain the energy factor, he has come into contact with a lot of antiquities, and his vision can be regarded as vicious. If the daggers in the aquatic plants are sold to Chen Wu and his family, they can earn 100,000 yuan and make a small fortune. Yes, it is said that there are dangers in the Kingku Lake, so there are definitely many treasures at the bottom of the lake. The second ability of the small boss is to find substances that contain energy factors. Yunkai was slightly excited, feeling that he had found a way to make money. The original mother died of a dystocia, and his father died while fighting for Kinchinj. Fortunately, he gave a large pension on it, but there is always a day to sit and eat. The small boss that he spends a lot of energy to create is far more effective than he thought. The grey slime in a daze didn't think so much. It just confirmed it, and then it threw on the dagger and swallowed it. Yunkai clearly observed that the dagger quickly decomposed after entering the transparent belly of the little boss, turning into a dozen small light spots into its body, and then disappearing. Yunkai doesn't care about it, the thoughts just now are just thoughts, the most urgent thing is to let the slime freely increase their strength. He saw some changes in the information in the manual. The slime felt the benefit and continued to wander the bottom of the lake. After swallowed the dagger, its ability seemed to increase a bit, and soon found a dagger fragment and swallowed it in the same way. The slime continued to act. The slime is not satisfied. The slime tasted the sweetness. The slime was excited. Yunkai has been observing and communicating with the boss manufacturing manual, and found that as the swallowed antiquities increase, his little boss can have some simple consciousness exchanges with him. In addition to swallowing, it also has an additional ability to collect. What the slime is doing now is to grow into a qualified boss. After diving for a while at the bottom of the lake, it began to move deeper. The light is getting darker and darker, and the sun shines through some muddy water, like a glowing light bulb. It didn't take long for the slime to reach a rocky area. The silt almost covered the stones. The moss grew very vigorously here, and many small fish swam around. Other than that, there doesn't seem to be any special items. Under Yunkai's curious gaze, the grey slime removed a huge boulder, and a thin book appeared on the muddy bottom of the water. The material should be some kind of extraordinary animal fur. Book? Yun opened his eyes and brightened. The material is special and it hasn't been damaged by blisters. The little boss is still interested, indicating that the value of this book is certainly not low. This is simply a golden mouse. Open it. He gave his first order. The slime didn't object. The book that had been soaked for an unknown number of years was opened, and the sewn text appeared. Hair growth. I have been exhausted since I practiced, and my hair is getting thinner and thinner, which is very distressing. The day before yesterday, the little girl from the Li family laughed at my hairline. In order to prevent Xiaonazai from being fascinated by that little white face, and to see what the real Yushu Linfen is, I have traveled around the world for more than 3 years, and finally created an unparalleled secret technique for hair growth. Yunkai feels sad for this predecessor. It turns out that people with extraordinary powers will also suffer from hair loss. Hair growth technique should be a door secret technique. Through the previous understanding in the black market, the value of the secret technique is even more extraordinary, but this secret technique is not a type of attacking guard, and I don't know if it will depreciate. He chose to collect this secret technique. The slime was wrapped in a body, and the next moment the hair growth technique appeared in the space on the first page of the manual. Then it conveyed its consciousness to Yunkai. Copy the text information of the secret technique. The grey slime will appear after being killed, the killer can absorb and learn, and then the secret technique I master will be more powerful. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Yunkai understood it, meaning, this should be explosive equipment. After thinking about it, he agreed to make a copy of the slime and see the effect at that time. At this moment, the slime seemed to feel something, and quickly fled upwards, with an extremely fast speed. The few big carps that passed by instantly fainted and floated to the surface of the water. Yunkai only saw an octopus-like creature raising a tentacle at the bottom of the lake, separated by a distance of more than 10 meters. A special energy spread, and the slime couldn't resist at all, so he was cut half of his body. Escaped to the surface, but the octopus did not continue pursuing it. Why are there octopus in the lake? This should be the reason why ordinary people don't get into the water easily. Since there is extraordinary energy, animals will inevitably change. At this moment, the slime's aura is sluggish, but the special body structure does not cause it to be fatally injured, but it is definitely not allowed to enter the water now. He directed the slime to approach the shore. It was already in the afternoon, and the sun was not as harsh as before, so there were more and more anglers on the shore. Yang Jianfeng, the tall and fat black market middleman, has also arrived, and the 10-meter short pole is like a toy in the opponent's hands. Hasn't been caught, and can still fish with peace of mind. After he was arrested, he obviously confessed the fat man, trying to get a leniency. Now, there really is a problem. The slime melts in the water, and ordinary people can't see anything. Let's see if he can detect it. Yung Kai always had a sorrow about his arrest. Because he violated the regulations, he was sentenced to compulsory study. He felt that he might as well step on the sewing machine. How can you use it to learn this kind of thing? By the shore, Yang Jianfeng was in a happy mood. Fishing was his biggest hobby. As long as he was fine, he would come to Kink Lake for 2 shots. Moreover, many fish in the lake are extraordinary, unknowingly undergoing life evolution, and eating them will be of great benefit to people. Although Kinchinj prohibits ordinary people from contacting the supernatural, it does not prevent them from using various methods to improve their physical fitness. After all, the better a person's physique, the greater the value created. Yang Jianfeng calmed his mind, and gradually focused his attention on the red and green fishing floats in the distance, his expression extremely serious. Even his wife, he has never observed it so carefully. Suddenly, the fishing float slowly moved up, and then it was black for an instant. Bingo! Yang Jianfeng immediately lifted the rod, and a huge force came from the rod, which was a sign of Zongdayu. The attention of the person next to him was attracted. Lao Yang, I caught a big fish. Someone next to him said enviously. It's 50 catties for less. Yang Jianfeng showed his big white teeth, and found that many people were watching him, so he was extremely proud. Underwater, it was the grey slime that bit the hook. Is this their emotions? Yung Kai felt his own changes, and found that after the slime took the bait, his own will seemed to have been strengthened, and the original feeling of fatigue was gradually dispelled. If you are playing games, you must have various emotions when you encounter a boss. Some people are excited and some are afraid, indicating that these emotions are also very important to the boss. He analyzed. Originally he thought that the boss he made was equivalent to a pet, but now it is his mission to become a real boss. Strong emotions are part of the mission of boss. Yung Kai's mind suddenly became active. The grey slime doesn't seem to have very strong combat ability. If you play as a horror boss, the effect is definitely good. While thinking, Yang Jianfeng had already slipped for a long time, and there was a steady stream of nervousness and excitement. Yung Kai let the slime unhook. When was released, the people on the shore sat down on the ground. Fuck! The voice came to the bottom of the water. The people next to said it was a pity, but Yung Kai could clearly perceive that this group of people had a happy mood that was 10 times higher than before. If the manual can prompt, it should be, the happy emotion value from XX, plus 999. Unfortunately, it is not a manual for collecting emotional values, so there is no such function. If you have a real understanding, it turns out that the happiest thing for a fisherman is that someone else catches a big fish, but not completely. Watching Yang Jianfeng throw the pole again, he ordered the slime to bite the hook again. It will definitely work this time. The tall and sturdy Yang Jian assured the person next to him. He doesn't choose to fish anymore. His poles and string sets are top-notch things, and the feeling of eating is a dead hook, so just go straight up. At a weight of more than 200 catties, he can't do more than a fish. Yang Jianfeng began to exert his strength. The fishing rod bends, and there are small drops of water hanging on the fishing line tightly stretched into a straight line, and it makes a sharp sound when the wind blows by. The slime instantly relieved his strength. Yang Jianfang sat on the ground, ha 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 laughed all around, and a group of people were extremely happy. Yang Jian looked dignified, stood up and exerted force again, this time he was ready. The slime took advantage of his carelessness and suddenly used a huge force again, and Yang Jianfang was pulled into the water. The bank of Qingque was filled with cheerful air. Encountered such a shameful shame, Yang Jianfang didn't want to stay anymore, pretending to be a few small fish that he had caught before, and leaving. When he filled the water, the slime went into the bucket. "Lao Yang, are you coming tomorrow?" There was a smile on his face beside him. "Wait, I will definitely get this fish up tomorrow." Yang Qianfang's face was not good looking, and he hurriedly left the shore under the joking eyes of everyone. Yung Kai had a little judgment, since the other party did not find the existence of slime, then it should be an ordinary person. He wanted to know if he was caught this time, so he should continue to follow and see if he can learn anything. After walking through the streets of the city for a while, Yang Jianfang drove into a community. After half a month, Yung Kai has learned that the level of science and technology in this world is roughly the same as that of the Earth, with more advanced weapons, and the design of the city is very special. It was dark at this time, and Yang Jianfang returned home. As soon as I walked in and opened the door, I could smell the scent of food. This is a very warm family. Yang Qianfang's wife is about 40 years old. She has a pretty good figure and has the unique style of a woman of this age. "Xiao Qian, come out and see the fish my father fished for you." Yang Jianfang shouted with a smile. "I'll be out soon." The girl's voice came from the small bedroom. Yung Kai's attention was instantly concentrated. This voice seems a bit familiar. Before he could think, a young girl walked out of the bedroom, wearing a light yellow t-shirt, stepping on pink sandals, and her skin was very pale. As for looks, although they are not pretty or beautiful, they can be regarded as Xiajiabiu. They are the kind of little girls who are easy for boys to like. "Yang Jian?" Yung Kai was surprised. He knows this little girl, she is a classmate with him, and more importantly, Yang Jian likes him and sends out all kinds of delicious food every day. Although they did not accept her feelings, the two were considered friends. "I was arrested and Yang Jian is the daughter of Yang Jianfang. Is there any connection?" He decided to continue to observe. A family of three sat at the dinner table and started chatting, and soon talked about topics that interest him. Yang Jian's expression on the dinner table was a little unhappy. "Dad, today I learned that Yung Kai in our class was expelled from school. I heard that he had violated the rules and contacted extraordinary powers and had been arrested." Mother Yang said immediately, "You don't want to learn from him. Really qualified people have been sent to the second district since they were young. It would be nice to be an ordinary person in peace and stability. This family is really unusual." Yung Kai also knows a little about the city he is in. It is said that it is a city, but it is actually similar to a country on Earth, with a population of hundreds of millions. Many people have never seen the walls of Qin City in their entire lives. UU reading www.uuganshu.com. The 12 districts are similar to provinces and cities, with a vast area and a large population. He still doesn't quite understand the reasons for this structure. But if there is a district chief's father in Qinchensh, it is really Volvo. Mother Yang just said that she was sent to the second district, which is obviously something that ordinary people can't reach. Yang Jian squatted her mouth. "Dad, can Yung Kai still come out? He is so good that he can't touch the transcendence. It's really unfair. Dad, I want to get in touch too, and then go in with him. Give him homework guidance." Yang Jianfang, who was still calm at first, instantly exploded when he heard this. The adolescent child is really terrible. Actually being locked in is also an opportunity for your classmate. Don't do stupid things. Yang Jianfang stopped eating. Yang Jian's eyes lit up and she looked at her father. Yang Jianfang can only continue, "Remember what I told you before, about ordinary people gaining extraordinary power. Yang Jian nodded. Remember, you said that the above is not really prohibiting ordinary people from contacting the extraordinary, it is just a reasonable allocation of resources. The unified physical examination at the age of 6 is to screen a group of potential people to study in the second district. This way is if you suddenly awaken your extraordinary ability, you will also have the qualification to contact that kind of power. Her old father nodded. In fact, there is the last one, that is, people who dare to challenge under the strict regulations have a chance to be recognized. Of course, this method is very risky, but I think your classmate sure, I am optimistic about him. But if you go, you will definitely be dragged to repair the city wall and become an exploited labor force. Yang Jian nodded unwillingly, and then suddenly noticed something as if to stare at her father. Dad, do you know him? Yang Jianfeng opened his mouth, a little stunned for a while. When I was about to say something, there was a sudden movement at the door. Boom! There was a loud noise, the door was smashed open, followed by the sound of glass shattering. Several figures instantly jumped into the room. The change is so fast that Yongkai has not had time to react. He only saw an ordinary young man appearing from the door, wearing a special black costume, holding a dark keg in his left hand and a short sword in his right hand. The dagger shone coldly under the orange light. The cold light shot towards the slime. The slime is angry. Then its body was torn apart, the bucket was also pierced, and a few fish jumped on the ground, their mouths opened and closed, and they stared at the black-clothed man with dead fish eyes. I didn't use any force, why did it disappear? The man in black was surprised. Didn't you say that you should catch it alive? Lu Yiming, what did you eat? Another young woman who jumped in from the window was very upset. Hey, what is this? She noticed a drop of water left in the bucket. The picture began to collapse at this point, and finally all disappeared. Strength, normal level extraordinary factor, 140 points. Looking at the above information, feeling his own changes, he has almost figured out the role of the boss manual. The grey slime was hurt by an octopus in the lake, which made his physique strengthen a bit, and his strength felt a lot stronger. Closing his eyes, he can still see a phantom the size of a grain of rice in his mind. This should be the spiritual body. He also learned about the relevant knowledge in the black stone. Under normal circumstances, ordinary people cannot absorb energy factors and convert them into extraordinary factors. This requires the human body to constantly break through the limits. The mental body is similar to the mental power in the novels he has read. It belongs to the special power of the brain, and what many transcendents feel is just a breath. He can now see a mental body the size of a grain of rice, which has a lot to do with the emotion that the slime had absorbed before. Sitting on the stool, Yongkai began to summarize. The slime swallows extraordinary matter, can increase strength, and may gain new abilities in the future. The upper limit is unknown. After being hurt, his physique will improve. Slimes make others produce various emotions and then collect them, which will make their mental body stronger. The most important thing is death. According to the consciousness passed before, it should be that the more wonderful you die, the better your reward, but the definition of wonderful is temporarily unknown. There is also explosive equipment. I have already exploded the growth technique just now, just to see what benefits I can get after being learned. Yongkai took the boss manual back into his body. The slime was killed. The expression should have nothing to do with Yang Jianfeng. It is estimated that some defense mechanism was accidentally triggered. Those wearing special black clothes must belong to the official. I have long heard that monsters will grow on the land. Based on the reaction speed of this group of people, it is basically true that the rumor is true, so I will catch it. The third way Yang Jianfeng said is worth noting. Yongkai stood up and took a look in the mirror, feeling that his body shape seemed to have become more perfect, his skin was not as pale as before, and his overall state had improved a lot. He felt that he could easily pick up 290 caddies girls with his physical strength alone. And it's okay to ride on another head. Of course, it is impossible for him to be ridden, but you can think about it instead. First, memorize the hair growth technique. He decided to memorize the secret technique in his head. According to the previous routine of reading martial arts novels, if you don't know how to learn martial arts secrets, just remember them first. Yang Qianfeng's home. As soon as the young woman picked up the drops of water, things disappeared instantly, and the expression on her face quickly became exciting. Zhao Shuet, are you okay? The man who did it before looked at her nervously. I'm okay, it just feels like something has suddenly appeared in my brain. Zhao Shui patted his head with some confusion. She looks pretty, and the movements she makes are cute. But soon, Zhao Shui found that everyone was staring at her with a weird look. What are your eyes? She was a little dissatisfied. Sister Zhao, your hair. A member said cautiously. Hair? Zhao Shui quickly pulled the ponytail to the front, and suddenly found that her hair had grown by nearly 20 centimeters. No wonder a group of people looked like they had seen a ghost. However, she has a very strong psychological quality and has not been affected too much, so she quickly thinks about the cause and effect. It should be related to what was just now. I seem to have acquired one of its abilities, and the cost of using the abilities is the consumption of energy. She soon wanted to understand something. She continued, Lu Yiming, this monster obviously has high research value. Go back and write me a 10,000 character inspection. Lu Yiming's face suddenly collapsed. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com is very ugly. A group of them belong to the Clean Bureau, which, as the name suggests, is responsible for the cleaning work in the city. Since ancient times, monsters have grown on the land from time to time, just like the long grass, which has caused humans to fall into crisis several times. Many monsters will leave behind valuable things after killing them, which is a very good resource for improving strength. Nowadays, the cleaning work in Qinchinj can be regarded as a beautiful task. Zhao Shui wrote the analysis in the notebook. Monster, water monster. She looked up. At this time, Yang Qianfeng and his family are standing in the corner, far away from them, but the tall and fat man's expression is still calm. The little girl couldn't afford to be scared, squatting in the corner holding her head with her hands. Mr. Yang, I know your identity, so you should also know that we are saving your family, so you have to pay for the doors and windows. Zhao Shui felt that this kind of thing should be explained in advance. Yang Qianfeng immediately said, it should be. Zhao Shui was about to say something more, suddenly looked at her mobile phone screen, and then at Lu Yiming a moment later. You take people to the 12th high wall, and the instrument detects that a monster has grown there. If you can catch it alive, you don't need to write a review. She feels mentally exhausted a little bit, so she can't handle it personally. And it needs to be checked, the drop of water is a bit weird, and she can't make sure whether there is any problem with her body. Lu Yiming smiled with joy, don't worry, I promise to complete the task this time. Yung Kai quickly remembered the text of the hair growth technique, and at the same time his thinking diverged. The 12th wall is relatively free. There are 3 dormitory buildings inside the wall, there are lawns underneath, and some animals are also raised. If it's not for restricting going out and communicating with the outside world, this place is pretty good. Those who are eligible to enter this place are all students. After 3 months, they can go out after achieving 90 points in 3 courses. The problem is very difficult, so many people give up as soon as they come in, waiting for the time to accept their final destiny. But based on the conversation between Yang Qianfeng and his daughter, it can be inferred that things seem not that simple. There are not many words in the secret technique, and the display is related to the spiritual body. After reading it, Yun Kai felt that a small cyclone was born in his brain, and it was slowly being absorbed by the spiritual body. Some people on the black market say that occult art is a very mysterious thing. After reading it, it turns out that a small cyclone is born in the brain. Am I a genius? He was a little uncertain. When I was in doubt, the boss manual changed. Hair growth is learned and success is enhanced. He clearly felt that the cyclone seemed to be a bit more solid, and it was quickly swallowed by the spirit body. He seems to have suddenly got the instructions. My mind turned, and the vellus hair on the back of my hand quickly began to grow. After a few breaths, it reached 10 centimeters in length, and it looked quite disgusting. Pulled and unplugged, there was not much pain. It consumes energy to make hair grow. This is the original function of the secret technique, but it can help other people grow hair after being strengthened. Not bad. Helping a rich person can make money, and if anyone offends me, let her keep growing hair. If this secret technique is used well, it will definitely be of great use. The next time the grey slime dies, it can continue to explode. Anyway, others have learned the original hair growth technique, and the effect is definitely not as good as his. I was trying to see if the mental body is helpful to my study. Suddenly there was movement outside the door. Someone is walking back and forth. The hair growth technique was included in the manual, and a knock on the door rang. Yungkai, is me, I want to chat with you. Someone outside the door said. Yungkai remembered the voice. The other party's name is Zhou Xiaoqing. She entered in the same batch as him. She helped him at the time. She was a very talkative girl with very strong social skills. Opened the door, the light outside was very bright, and the high wall not far away looked a little solemn in the moonlight. Zhou Xiaoqing is just over 1 meter 6, slender, wearing a light yellow t-shirt, looks very good. This is one of the reasons why she can mix with hundreds of people. It's 8 o'clock, what else are you talking about? Yungkai yawned. He is nearly 1.8 meters tall, standing with Zhou Xiaoqing, looking very harmonious. I'm looking for you at night, to share with you some secret news, and it is related to our going out. Zhou Xiaoqing smiled. The cloud opened up a bit of interest. In fact, he has been paying attention to Zhou Xiaoqing from the first day he came here, not because Zhou Xiaoqing is good looking, but because he thinks this woman is very special. Is the kind of superiority unintentionally displayed because of knowing some secrets. He hates this inexplicable sense of superiority, so he feels very keen on it. Zhou Xiaoqing's eyes stayed on Yungkai's face for a while, and then smiled and said, "Let me in, I won't eat you again. This is actually what I worry about." He thought for a while. With his current strength, the opponent should not be able to use a strong one, so he let the door open. Zhou Xiaoqing came in and saw what was on the table. "Are you interested in antiquities?" Yungkai followed up, "Well, I heard that there are energy factors in the ancients, so I want to try it." Zhou Xiaoqing smiled and did not refute. "We are locked in this ghost place because of our contact with the supernatural. How do you feel? Do you feel it?" Yun thought about it. He didn't actually have much emotion. The Qinchinj regulations were written long ago. At the beginning, he should think about the end. As for the good or bad of prohibiting ordinary people from contacting cultivation, it is not his consideration. If you don't know enough, you don't make judgments. Besides, listening to Yang Qian's conversation with her dad, she actually did a talent screening very early. Fortunately, I think ordinary people in Qinchinj have a good life, indicating that the problem is not big. Yunkai said casually. Zhou Xiaoqing showed a noncommittal expression. "I heard that many big cities outside do not prohibit ordinary people from contacting the supernatural at all. There are even martial arts gymnasiums on the street. The school encourages students to practice, and it counts as a college entrance examination result. If I have strong power in the future, I must change the status quo of Qinchinj." Yungkai couldn't help but glanced at her. The little girl was quite ambitious. Saying this to myself tonight is to spread her ideas, in exchange for a bunch of people to support her in the future? But he is not interested in this kind of thing, so he profusely said, then I wish you success. Zhou Xiaoqing said seriously, then if I get into trouble in the future, will you support me? She leaned on the chair, unconsciously or intentionally, showing a very good figure. Supporting a fart, Yongkai chose to ignore. What are you doing? Rebellion. Zhou Xiaoqing's expression changed slightly. I know nonsense, how dare I? Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com just wants to contribute to the public. Yun said casually, that's boring. Then he saw that Zhou Xiaoqing's eyes were full of brilliance. This woman definitely has a problem. Either his brain is sick or he belongs to a special force. He thought of certain organizations mentioned in safety education. If this is the case, the other party's many strange behaviors in the past few days can be reasonably explained. Zhou Xiaoqing said, don't talk about this, let me tell you about the information about the 12th high wall where we are. Yongkai kept himself smiling, do you need me to exchange something? Zhou Xiaoqing shook her head, just treat it as if you owe me a favor. I will definitely not lose anyway. She smiled slyly. Under the light, such a smile is quite cute. Yongkai is unmoved, and now the ugly grey slime is the cutest in his eyes. Zhou Xiaoqing continued, in the high wall on the 12th, the so-called relying on learning to get out is actually a cover. The real purpose of the above is to train some people. Maybe tomorrow, maybe a few days later, there will be official people showing up to teach us how to practice. In the prescribed time, a little energy factor can be transformed into an extraordinary factor, and the real first step is taken to qualify for freedom. If you fail to do so, you will be sent to the 13th district under construction to repair the city wall, be crushed for half your life, and you may die at any time. Yongkai quickly digested what she said. The third chance Yang Qianfang mentioned is just this. Even if a little transcendent factor is successful, he now has 18 points in his body, which seems to be much stronger than he thought. Since I'm a beginner, I will find the right time to go out. Yun thought happily. According to the case in memory, if an ordinary person suddenly possesses extraordinary abilities, the official response speed is extremely fast, and that person will become a master the next day. If I show my ability to help others grow hair, I guess it should be fine. The few warriors I have seen in my impression also show signs of baldness, which shows that life evolution is also difficult to resist certain things in genes, unless it can be cut off at a certain very high level. There is really no way in the future, but I can still make a lot of money with hair growth. The boss manual is too powerful. I don't know when I can open a new page to create a second boss. He has already tasted the sweetness. Yongkai glanced at Zhou Xiaoqing again. The room was originally small, and the atmosphere seemed a bit wrong when two lone men and widows were in their youth. Of course, what Yongkai thought was why this stupid woman with insufficient IQ didn't leave. Although she can't guess whether she joined a messy organization, based on the remarks in her usual performance, it can be inferred that Zhou Xiaoqing is probably brainwashed. A woman who looks good and doesn't have enough brains doesn't have any charm. Are you trying to win over yourself through seductive means? Too naive. He continued to smile, making himself look harmless and non-aggressive. Zhou Xiaoqing, I'm going to bed, please close the door when you go out. Yongkai stretched out and slapped. Hey! Zhou Xiaoqing, who was fiddling with her hair on the chair, was surprised. Yongkai's expression is serious. Ah what, even if you don't think about yourself, you must think about me, you can't tarnish my innocence. Zhou Xiaoqing's face quickly turned red. This guy, talking too much. What and what? Yongkai, you look into my eyes, and seriously say whether I look good. Zhou Xiaoqing looked slightly angry. Yongkai looked over subconsciously. The skin is delicate, the eyebrows are curved, the eyelashes are dense and long, the double eyelids are also very attractive, and the most important thing is that the eyes will glow. Wrong, shine? The next moment, he saw a red mist quickly rushing to the mental body in his mind, wanting to cover control. The mental body the size of a grain of rice waved at will, the red mist was controlled in the palm of his hand, and he swallowed it in one bite. His brain immediately understood the content of the red mist. A secret technique released by Zhou Xiaoqing's mental body, called the calming magic technique. After being recruited, he will think that he is a doll, and he can't move when he loses his impression. But his mental body is too strong, so he was not hit. Look at what she wants to do first. He decided to pretend to be a doll first. I reflected on it at the same time in my heart. I didn't expect Zhou Xiaoqing to be mentally and physically able to perform secret techniques. Although it was more because of her lack of experience and lack of relevant knowledge, she shouldn't be careless. Zhou Xiaoqing in the room smiled and walked to Yongkai to admire her masterpiece. She rubbed Yongkai's hair with her hands. You look pretty, but you will be mine from now on. She quickly closed the curtains. Although the inside of the 12th high wall is relatively free, there are staff patrols, so you can't be too careless. Zhou Xiaoqing took out a black grass seed and blade from his pocket. Cut off the skin and bury the seeds. She looked at Yongkai's arm. When the tip of the knife was about to touch the skin, a voice suddenly sounded. That's it. The tone seemed disappointed. Zhou Xiaoqing was so scared that she just sat on the ground. She was stupid. How can it be? Obviously they were successful. Yongkai didn't mean to pity her at all. He directly pressed her on the chair with great strength, and tied her up with the sheets. When Zhou Xiaoqing wanted to resist, she realized that she couldn't move at all. I thought you were going to do something, I almost looked forward to it. Yongkai was talking, but the expression on his face was not pretty. If Zhou Xiaoqing just wanted to rob sex, he might not pursue it, but now. Let's talk about it. What is this seed? Yongkai picked up the things on the ground. Zhou Xiaoqing closed her mouth tightly, seeing death as home. Yun chuckled. He didn't mind showing off his extraordinary ability. There is no need to hide his strength or anything. Answer my question. If I don't say it, I don't mind stripping you out and throwing it outside. Zhou Xiaoqing raised her head. If you let me go now, I will assume that nothing has happened. Think about it. If I yell, who would they believe? At this time, her clothes were a little deformed, her hair was messy and she was tied to a chair, and the torn sheets were still wrapped around her belly, which appeared to be bulging in a certain part. Whoever sees this kind of scene will make up the same content. So she has no fear. Then you are not curious about my identity? Why is your concentration technique ineffective for me? Yongkai took the blade and wiped it from her head. A strand of hair fell to the ground. Zhou Xiaoqing's face changed obviously when she heard the name of concentration magic. Who are you? Yun laughed and said, my background is very big. You reading www.yuyuganshu.com, but you don't want to know my identity, otherwise you will die miserably. I accidentally cut your hair, let me make it up for you. While talking, the hair growth technique was performed at the same time. Then Zhou Xiaoqing saw that the small hairs on the back of her hand were growing rapidly, which looked very strange and almost disappeared from the fright. Yongkai was surprised and said, I'm sorry, I'm not too proficient yet, try again. The hair growth technique was performed again. Zhou Xiaoqing quickly felt a mass of leg hair growing in his pants, and he could clearly see it in the grey sweatpants. She looked at Yongkai in horror, as if looking at a devil. I'm so embarrassed and wrong again, but I am really not good at learning, so let's do it, or else let you get a little hairy all over your body, and you won't be violating it when you look at it. Are you okay? The people and animals who are laughing at the cloud are harmless. No, I said everything, don't torture me. Zhou Xiaoqing was already scared to death. That's right, answer my first question first. Yongkai sat opposite her. Zhou Xiaoqing said, seeds can help you transform energy factors, but the price is that after it grows in your body, it will be controlled by me and can only work for me. Yongkai has the effect of some surprise seeds, and continues to ask, why did you choose me? Zhou Xiaoqing, the adult asked me to choose the right target. I observed for a few days and found that among hundreds of people, you have a calmness and stability far surpassing that of your peers. The master said that we want talents. Yun said, although the woman's brain is not very good, her vision is okay. He helped shave off the black hair on the back of Zhou Xiaoqing's hand, thinking about what to do with this woman. Does your sir know that I exist? He continued to ask. Zhou Xiaoqing shook her head quickly, the adults are not here, I just perform the tasks of the adults. Yun Kai deliberately showed an arrogant look, it's also fortunate that he is not here. If it disturbs me, it will definitely make him dead or alive. Zhou Xiaoqing shrank her head, she now knew that she had provoked someone who shouldn't be offended. She is only 16 years old this year. Although she has undergone some training, she has serious lack of experience and made a big mistake. But if the other party asked about the identity of an adult, she would never say that, let alone growing black hair, even if it had red hair. Okay, as long as it doesn't disturb me, let's not disturb the river. Yun Kai twisted his neck. He didn't want to get this mess, so he didn't even want to ask Zhou Xiaoqing's adult. And even if it were to be solved, he couldn't do anything himself. I have a grey slime, and I really want to mess with it in another way, why bother to myself? He continued, but tonight this thing can't be done easily. I like antiquities. Think about what you should do. He will pretend to be a mysterious identity in front of this woman, and then it depends on the situation. If operated properly, this woman might be a good tool person. He will go out if he has a chance, and he won't stay for long. Zhou Xiaoqing's face reappeared, and her eyes lit up. She originally thought that she was bound to die and would be handed over by Yun Kai. If that were the case, she would choose to die. However, Yun Kai's performance made her feel surprised. She thinks that the other party can recognize the calming magic at a glance, as well as that incredible ability. It is terrifying, and it feels terrible to think about it. The backing of the other party is definitely not small. Was so strong that he deliberately entered the 12th wall. The purpose was obviously not simple, and there must be a lot of involvement behind it. Zhou Xiaoqing had a judgment in her heart, and she decided that she must not provoke her afterwards, otherwise the adults might also be implicated. She nodded quickly like a chicken, don't worry, I will definitely take out the antiquities and apologize. Yun Kai, can I use this kind of stuff? Zhou Xiaoqing shook his head, no, you have to plant the white seeds given by the adult in your body in advance if you want to use it. Then forget it, it's better not to try it strangely. Now that he has a boss manual, he doesn't care about certain opportunities or something, so it's better to develop slowly first. There seems to be movement outside the window. Yun Kai raised his head and looked at the door. He heard a voice coming from outside, as if he was fighting fakes. Can you let me go first? Zhou Xiaoqing panicked. Now she is still tied to a chair, and after struggling for a while, she looks even more indescribable. Row. Yun Kai also felt that something was wrong, if he was seen by others, it would affect his own image. Was about to reach out to untie the sheets when the outside noise suddenly became louder. Then the window broke, the glass shattered, and a green shadow rushed into the room with a fishy smell. The green shadow is a snake. It looks like a woven green grass on the whole body. It is constantly twisting and stretching on the body. It looks very weird. It is not a creature in cognition at all. I still want to run. A figure rushed in. Yun Kai felt a flower in front of him, and the man threw a net to completely control the green snake. The snake kept twisting, but couldn't rush out at all. It was Lu Yiming who threw the net. He smiled. In order to catch the snake, he had spent a lot of effort before it succeeded in catching it. No need to write a review. Lu Yiming was very happy. Was about to mention the green snake when he suddenly noticed something was wrong. It is normal that there are people in the room. A man and a woman can accept it, after all, it's age. But there is a man and a woman, and the woman is still tied to a chair. This is abnormal. Especially women are so pretty. Lu Yiming immediately filled up countless plots, and he sighed in his heart when he saw Yun Kai's face. Was blinded by a harmless face of humans and animals, and actually did this kind of thing. As expected, the people at the high wall on the 12th were a group of people who were not afraid of fear and fear. At this time, several more people ran in. When they saw the scene in the room, they were all taken aback. Very exciting plot. The tumbling green grass snake is no one noticed now. Zhou Xiaoqing flushed and closed her eyes. Although her identity and special purpose are not pure, she is not too young to cope with this situation. Boy, courage is quite fat. Lu Yiming said coldly. Yun Kai is also a little helpless. He recognized Lu Yiming's face. It was this person who killed the grey slime just now, and he didn't expect to meet again so soon. Who are you? He focused more on the green grass snake. In the legend, monsters sometimes grow on the land. It should be this kind of thing. When the opponent can quickly find the slime, the identity is easy to guess. Lu Yiming said indifferently, members of the cleanup bureau, sometimes also clean up the scum by the way. Don't be afraid, little girl, I will call the shots for you. Yun laughed and said, I think you should have misunderstood something, you reading www.yuyuganshu.com and I just played a game with her. This is just a plot designed. If you don't believe me, please ask her. The plot designed by. Lu Yiming felt the corners of his mouth twitch. He looked at Zhou Xiaoqing unwillingly, is what he said is true? Don't be afraid, no one can hurt you. When spoke, his tone softened a bit. Zhou Xiaoqing looked up, and saw that many people looked at her, making her face even more red. The voice is like a mosquito, we are playing. Lu Yiming only feels the thunder is rolling, are young people like this now? Is this a good thing that disturbs others? Lu Yiming had a black face, raised the green grass snake in the corner, and walked out the door without saying a word. Originally he was very happy to catch the monster, but now he just wants to go back to sleep. Is he irritated? Yun Kai asked another member of the clean bureau. The man coughed slightly, okay, don't ask if you shouldn't ask, you can continue. A few people followed Lu Yiming and left, not very interested. Yun Kai quickly solved Zhou Xiaoqing. This image of myself is almost ruined, women are really troublesome. If it's a man, forget it, it's harder to say for men. Okay, you go back, you better not provoke me in the future. Zhou Xiaoqing nodded quickly, I will give you things tomorrow, and the people above will come tomorrow to teach cultivation methods and popularize related knowledge. Yun said yeah without speaking. Zhou Xiaoqing didn't dare to stay any longer. It was estimated that someone would watch the show, so he left quickly and didn't dare to stay any longer. Zhou Xiaoqing left and took away the seed. Yun Kai was not interested in it. Many people have seen what happened at night, which caused a lot of discussion. I heard that a monster appeared inside the high wall. Some students became scared. They thought that the monster was pure nonsense, but they didn't expect it to happen around them. Some people are excited, some are scared, feel that fate is beyond control, and start to miss the past life. It seems that it's good to be an ordinary person. Of course, more people are still numb, thinking that after 3 months, they will inevitably usher in a bleak life. Yun Kai applied for a change of room, as long as nothing happened, and at the same time looking forward to the coming tomorrow, he will be able to go out soon. He woke up early the next morning. It was summer, and the temperature in the morning was still a bit cold, but he found that he felt very comfortable today without any discomfort. This should be because of my physical growth. Yun thought happily. He was suffering from cancer on the earth. He had been lying in a hospital bed for 3 years, and he had dreamed of having a healthy body countless times. Crossing to another world, although his life experience is not very good, he still cherishes it very much. It may be happy to be an ordinary person, but he doesn't want to, he just wants to become stronger, so that nothing can hurt him. People who have been tortured by illness will understand that feeling. Go out quickly. Although both parents died, he left a lot of inheritance. He had turned 16 a few days ago and can formally inherit it. While eating breakfast in the cafeteria, Zhou Xiaoqing came to him again, wearing a hat. This is the antique I used to apologize. She took out a dark yellow wooden carving. Is about the size of a palm. The sculptured image is of a woman. The workmanship is not particularly exquisite, and it looks like a vintage. Yung Kai picked it up and communicated with the boss manual. There is an 80-point energy factor. He looked at the villain in amazement. He thought it would be 3 or 5 o'clock at most, but he didn't expect it to be so much. For half a month, he has learned a lot about antiquities. Usually, the value of antiquities with a little energy factor is about 10,000. Can contain more than 10 antiquities, it is difficult to detect the specific number, so the value is higher. Zhou Xiaoqing's sculptures are worth at least 1 million. The rich like this kind of things very much. Although they can't absorb them, it's good for the body if they keep them regularly. The cloud said silently, not bad. Zhou Xiaoqing hurriedly said, you like it. I bought it for 100,000 yuan, but I think it is definitely not ordinary. People with stronger spirits are very sensitive to this kind of things. Yung Kai accepted the carving. After a while, he will let the boss manual absorb all the energy. Yesterday the slime worked so long to get more than 100 points. When the energy is accumulated, it will definitely be of great use at critical times. Zhou Xiaoqing continued, I heard that the person who came today is called Zhang Kaiming, and he is also a figure who went out from the 12th high wall. This time he is in charge of us. Yung Kai didn't say anything, he can protect his safety to the greatest extent by following the customs. Qin Cheng's ingenuity in training cultivators must have historical reasons. If you don't understand it, you can say my life is up to you and you will die quickly. Zhou Xiaoqing saw that Yung Kai had no intention of talking, and became more and more afraid of this young man, and hurriedly finished breakfast. At 8 o'clock in the morning, changes began to occur in the originally loose atmosphere of the 12th high wall. A person carrying a weapon appeared on the high wall, and the staff began to notify, asking all 302 people to enter a certain passage. At this time, a group of students discovered that there is a large space underground, which can accommodate thousands of people. Everyone was gathered together, each had its own seat, some people shivered with fright, their faces pale. Soon, everyone was given a booklet. There is not much content, just a brief introduction, which is basically the same as Zhou Xiaoqing said. These people are locked in, which means that they have the opportunity to be in contact with the extraordinary. Someone will come to teach and practice, and they will be eliminated if they fail to get started within a month. The contents of the manual surprised many people. They thought that their ending would be miserable, but they did not expect such an opportunity. However, there are quite a few people who don't change their expressions, and seem to know what will happen. Yung Kai was mentally prepared, so he was more curious. Sat on the stool and waited for about half an hour, finally someone came in from outside. Is about 30 years old, has short hair, and a fierce look in his eyes, which makes it difficult to provoke at first glance. This is probably what Zhou Xiaoqing said about Zhang Kaiming. Yun started to think. Do you want to hide your strength? Actually, there is no need for that. In a normal society, you can only get preferential treatment if you show extraordinary talents, and fantasize that there are always people who want to harm me. That is the late stage of secondary disease. He always felt that Mu Xiu Lin Feng would destroy it is very unreasonable. The trees show up in the forest to get more light, and then grow sturdily. They are so short that they can't even see the sun. Trivial development is to try not to provoke danger when you are weak, avoid high-level and well-equipped heroes, and fight in the late game by making up knives and mixed assists to grab the head. I don't like to talk nonsense, and I don't want to be a teacher. I will send you relevant knowledge later. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com will do the first item first. Jiang Kaiming opened his mouth and spoke vigorously. Everyone was attracted by him. A fierce animal skin was suspended in the air controlled by Jiang Kaiming. This extraordinary method made many students' eyes colorful. There is only one special text on the skin of the fierce animal. Many people hold their heads with their hands after a glance, feeling that their heads are about to explode. Jiang Kaiming continued, this word is written by the three realms strong. It contains special energy and can awaken the spiritual body. If your spiritual body is strong enough, you can fly into the sky. Of course, I suggest that you still don't watch too much. If you don't have enough mental and physical strength, you will be foolish, and you will not even have the opportunity to follow the normal path of cultivation. The three realm powerhouses are not weak anymore. At the time, every realm had a special name. Later, the world changed drastically. The high-level experts felt that the fancy realm name was purely a burden, so they replaced it with the most intuitive one realm and two realms. Jiang Kaiming finished speaking and began to observe below. Normal practice absorbs energy factors by stimulating the limit of the body and cooperating with the guidance method. If it is successfully transformed into an extraordinary factor, it is considered an entry. If the body is strong enough, the mental body will naturally grow. And reading the words directly is the enlightenment. Many people's mental bodies are sleeping. Now this method is considered a kind of stimulation, and it is easy to cause problems. He reminded him that he has done his best. When he was imprisoned, the man only talked about the benefits and not the danger, which caused dozens of people to become idiots on the spot. There was a bang, and someone fainted. Fool! Jiang Kaiming commented in his heart. Cultivation pays attention to doing according to one's ability, without a clear cognition of oneself, just thinking about soaring into the sky, there are problems in your mind. Someone fainted, and the rest of the people who felt uncomfortable dared not to watch more. But there were a few who insisted. In the end, bright red blood flowed from both eyes, which looked terrifying. For them, that word is really horrible, it's like looking directly at the sun, and after the extreme light, there is the extreme darkness. Jiang Kaiming looked on coldly. There are several types of energy guidance technique, breathing method, heart meridian, and some martial arts, but the most special is the spiritual body guidance technique. The talent test of Kinchinch people when they were young was related to the spiritual body, so few missed out, and there will be no one in Kinchinch for several years. If you look at the word within the tolerance range, there will be some benefits, and it will also eliminate students who are not up to the standard of greed and aggressiveness. In the lobby, Jiang Kaiming controlled the text floating, and found a chair to sit down. Sun Yan, the manager of the number 12 high wall, is a woman in her 30s. She has a medium to high appearance, but her figure is very charming. Even if she is older, there are many suitors. Sun Yan came to him and sat down, smiled and said, "It seems that no one will succeed this time." Jiang Kaiming said lightly, "Normal." Sun Yan sneered at some of the students who were carried out, "A bunch of idiots, all of them think that they are the sons of destiny, unique, and the most ridiculous thing about people is that they can't see themselves clearly." Jiang Kaiming glanced at her, feeling that these words were a bit innuendo. Although the words are ugly, they are also facts. Maybe one can come out. If you can show up, I ask you to go to my house to sleep. Sun Yan sneered. Since she took this position, she had never heard of anyone succeeding in Kinchinch, otherwise she would not say such a thing. She had said the same thing to at least 10 people, and those men were disappointed in the end. Teasing men is a very interesting thing. Why are you going home? You don't need to ask to know. Jiang Kaiming took another look at her. She was a little moved. Sun Yan's skin was well maintained and her figure was so good that many young people couldn't hold her back. But I just think about it. It is as difficult to wake up the spiritual body through the perception of potential. Super comprehension and a strong spiritual body are indispensable. 302, the odds are too low. Yunkai is a little curious to observe others. Is that word really so powerful? Why can't I feel it? Seeing that Zhou Xiaoqing was nearby, he sat down and asked in a low voice, "What do you think?" Zhou Xiaoqing's face was a little pale. "I can't. I feel that after a few more glances, my mental body will be washed away." Yunkai wonders, is it so scary? Originally, he thought that Zhou Xiaoqing could release the secret technique through the mental body, it should be the same as him, and did not show it because there is a special purpose. After thinking about it, he began to look at the word seriously. Kill the words belonging to this world are floating, seeming to have blood-colored lines, and they are nothing at first glance, but after a long time, you can find that it seems to carry something on it. At this moment, there is no distraction in Yun's happiness, and he feels that his spirit and body seem to be jumping for joy. The text is not critical, what is important is the will carried on it. Soon, he saw the word kill turned into several air currents, forming swords, guns, and sticks and various weapons to attack him. The momentum was mighty and it seemed to be able to tear people into pieces. But his mental body was not afraid at all. He opened his mouth and took a big breath, and the airflow was swallowed. Is this the attacking method of the mental body? Yunkai was surprised and pleasantly surprised. He did not expect to have such a gain. If the previous mental body was barehanded, then now it is equivalent to having 4 basic weapons like swords, guns, and sticks. The mental body the size of a grain of rice also seemed to be content, lying in the body and began to fall asleep. Zhang Kaiming is talking about awakening the spiritual body, so the various emotions that the little boss gained last night helped me wake up the spiritual body, which means that I was also very strong. He began to analyze. Grey Slime is not good at fighting, and his mental body can be connected to the boss manual, which means that it can help fights when the time comes. Killing those creatures with energy factors in Kink Lake, you can definitely gain more. Opened his eyes, Yunkai was startled. The people around him all backed away. Zhang Kaiming didn't know when he came to him, his eyes were burning, as if he had discovered a great treasure. Yunkai felt a nasty feeling. I was too involved just now, and I lost my perception of the outside world. Zhang Kaiming looked excited and said, "Your name is Yunkai, right?" Sun Yan has a complicated expression on the side. I really sat there. What's wrong with this disappointing tone? Yunkai feels that this woman has a problem. She seems to be very happy, and she seems to be particularly upset. Isn't it because the menopause has arrived early? Zhang Kaiming said to Sun Yan, "I will teach Yunkai personally. Here you can watch it for me first. Yunkai, come with me now." Zhang Kaiming can't hide his excitement. Of course, this excitement has little to do with Sun Yan. See her again in the afternoon. Just now, when Yunkai realized his sentiment, all the momentum carried in the text was absorbed. This is a rare situation, indicating that Yunkai's spiritual body is far beyond ordinary people. As long as you get the right guidance, you are likely to grow into a strong one in the future. Zhou Xiaoqing looked at what happened, and felt that the clouds were unfathomable, and she must never offend her in the future. Thinking of what happened last night, she felt a little excited inexplicably. Cloud development reveals talent, this must be part of the great plan. And she can actually become a witness of the plan. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com is simply incredible. For a moment, Zhou Xiaoqing felt that the adult above her head was nothing. Yunkai followed Zhang Kaiming to a room. The room is very large and bright, and staying in will make people feel happy. He can feel the attention of the other party, and he seems to be really unusual. Zhang Kaiming let Yunkai sit down and smiled. "First of all, congratulations to you, you can regain your freedom, now if you have any questions, just ask. Yun thought about it for a while and said, am I pretty good? Jiang Kaiming said, there are 4 grades for cultivating you students, which are 3rd class talent, 2nd class talent and 1st class talent. In addition, there is also a super 1st class talent, which you can definitely divide into. Yun opened his eyes and brightened. Now he can judge that he can definitely get preferential treatment after showing his good talent, which can be seen from the expression of Sun Yan and Jiang Kaiming's attitude. Then what benefits can I get? Will I be forced to do something? He still cares about this. Jiang Kaiming smiled and said, there must be benefits, and they will be delivered to you soon. As for what you are required to do will not happen, everything will follow the principle of equivalent exchange, and you who have been exposed to extraordinary powers, can you hold it back in the future? Whether it is the guidance technique or other cultivation resources, it is impossible to get it in vain. As long as you are willing to pay, you will definitely get what you want. Just like working to make money, the choice is in your own hands. Yun was relieved with joy, as long as he is not forced to do what he does, and then look at what he has to do after going out. He thinks this super 1st class talent will definitely bring a lot of choices. What is the guiding technique you are talking about? Yun Kai was a little curious. In terms of cultivation, he is a real noob. Now that he has the opportunity, he must understand it well. Jiang Kaiming said, guiding technique is the most basic training method. Energy factors are introduced into the body through various methods for transformation. Qin Cheng has 3 general methods, namely De Qin breathing method, De Qin heart sutra, and De Qin body refining art. Therefore, Qin Cheng who is in contact with the transcendent will give 3 kinds of guidance techniques for free. The Dakin guiding technique seems ordinary, but in fact it is already top-notch. It was jointly deduced by more than 300 years ago. In other big cities, the guiding technique of the same level is worth at least 10 million yuan, and money may not necessarily be bought. There are still some sects who cherish themselves, and they need to be some core disciples to pass on. It is a small family. Speaking of these, his expression is full of pride. Listening to De Qin's name, Yun said with joy, how did Qin Cheng's name come from? Jiang Kaiming glanced at him in surprise, as if he didn't expect him to ask this. After thinking for a moment, he replied, in those days, the king city survived for the human race and sent strong men to build the city for thousands of miles. The names of the cities seem to be related to some ancient relics, and what I don't know is particularly clear. Yun's thoughts turned while happy, but he didn't think too much, these things were too far away from him. I don't have anything to ask, you see what else you want to tell me? Jiang Kaiming thought for a while and asked, how is your relationship with that Zhou Xiaoqing? Zhou Xiaoqing? Yun Kai was very surprised. Why would a figure like Jiang Kaiming pay attention to that girl? It's a acquaintance. Jiang Kaiming said, every time someone with a special purpose enters the high wall, Zhou Xiaoqing was discovered from the very beginning, so don't be obsessed with her. He didn't say too much, it was classified and not under his control. Yun Kai once again refreshed his impression of Qin Cheng. It turned out that Zhou Xiaoqing had been spotted a long time ago, but the net was not closed. In this case, he decided not to do more. Someone is staring, and now that he has a super 1st class talent status protection, there will definitely be no problem. Qin Cheng seemed to be a great backer, and this thigh held himself tight. Jiang Kaiming said sternly, now that you have some basic understanding, let me personally teach you 3 guiding techniques. If you don't mind, just call me Jiang brother. Yun Kai hurriedly said, thank you brother Jiang. I will become stronger in the future and I will definitely not forget this feeling. Jiang Kaiming feels more satisfied. It was actually his luck to find a fish that slipped through the net like Yun Kai. After the above confirmation, it will be a great credit. Teaching guidance is also a favor. He doesn't expect Yun Kai to repay after becoming a strong man. This little thing is not a reward at all, but if he can pretend to be forceful in front of his comrades, that face would be too great. You know who, but I led him into the door of transcendence at the beginning. Of course, there is also Sun Yan's gambling appointment, which seems quite interesting. Various mental and thought methods flashed by, and Jiang Kaiming began to teach seriously. Dakin body refining technique is a complete set of actions, which is very beautiful and easy to do, and it is all-encompassing. You can even perform various attack and defense moves after you are familiar with it. The Heart Sutra is a text, very mysterious, and practitioners can constantly perceive and perfect their own shortcomings. Breathing method seems to be simple, but in fact it needs to pull the internal organs and the whole body's qi and blood to continuously allow the physical body to complete the evolution of life. Jiang Kaiming taught conscientiously and conscientiously. Yung Kai also studied hard, and quickly mastered it all with the help of the spiritual body. It's not too difficult to get started with the 3 kinds of guidance techniques, but it's as difficult to advance as you can. You didn't dabble in the extraordinary until you were 16. You have to work hard in the future. Jiang Kaiming did not forget to warn him. Many people came into contact with cultivation at a very early age. After all, these people are still too late, and they won an opportunity at the cost of freedom. The other thing is that what you showed is mental and physical talent. I don't know much about this knowledge. Someone will look for you when you go back. You can remember my phone number, and you can contact me if you have something to do in the future. Of course, I also hope that you can consider joining our city guard. Yung Kai only feels comfortable all over now. Well, I will think about it, but what I want most now is to go home. The two chatted for a while. Jiang Kaiming gave a few more related books, and Yun Kai took his own things and left from the 12th high wall. There is nothing to miss in a place like this. Although I have gained a lot in a few days, it doesn't feel good to be locked up. It reminded him of how he felt when he was lying in a hospital bed. So if there is a chance, he will definitely not have the slightest nostalgia. After I went back, I inherited the shop left by my father, which can be considered as a stable source of income, and then continue to study the boss manual to see how to open the second page. Yun Kaixin has a general plan. It was noon at this time, and Jiang Kaiming invited Sun Yan to dinner. There are many couples dating in the bright restaurant. Sun Yan's expression has always been weird. She wants to stay away from Jiang Kaiming. Calm but a little curious. While waiting for the meal, she first spoke, "Today's betting appointment." Jiang Kaiming said seriously, "I know that is a joke, I won't take it seriously. You can just invite me to dinner these days." Sun Yan breathed a sigh of relief, "No problem, but I still have to talk about Yung Kai. Zhou Xiaoqing went to Yung Kai last night, and the few people from the clean bureau saw him strap Zhou Xiaoqing to a chair, and the two said they were playing games. So I think this person should focus on." Jiang Kaiming was drinking water and almost choked on hearing this. Is this what Yung Kai said? Is it acquaintance? He thought for a while and said, "It's not necessary. His father used to be the city guard, and he was a fellow with me. Even if he came into contact with Zhou Xiaoqing, it would only be a matter of these few days. I also felt it just now. He was not seated and he was in normal condition. The mist organization Zhou Xiaoqing belongs to is just a piece of that can't make it to the table. If he really joins the explanation, it will be just like that, it is not worth mentioning. There is no need to show hostility for this kind of thing, eat well." Listening to Jiang Kaiming's words, Sun Yan's eyes glowed a little, and she suddenly felt a certain charm from this man. Jiang Kaiming is now in his early 30s, and he is in charge of a large group of people in the city guard, and he belongs to the backbone. Maybe, the future is really boundless. Thinking about this, she spoke softly, "Well, listen to you." "Listen to me?" Jiang Kaiming glanced at her suspiciously. He originally thought that Sun Yan would refute him, and then it would be interesting for the two to collide with each other. It's no wonder that many people don't look for a wife. It turns out that because of this, women are too boring.